We are live with the 40th. That's right, Jonathan. The 40th edition of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show. This should be cause for celebration. But I tell you what, there's even a better news to celebrate today, and that is 4 West Virginia football players have been ruled eligible by the judge that they were in front of in Wheeling, West Virginia. Judge John, remind me of his name, Jonathan?
Bailey.
Judge John Bailey. I had a brain fart. But anyway, we are live on the 40th edition of the Golden Blue Breakdown Show here on Couz's Corner and over at WV Sports Chat on Facebook. Thank you for joining the show and of course, on X as well. Thanks for joining us. By the way, if you're watching on X, if you're watching on, please go follow us on those other platforms. Please come over to Couz's Corner YouTube, WV Sports Chat on Facebook, and vice versa. Follow us on all of our platforms. Let's just go ahead and pull up the tweet that came out today. The news was broken today by Mr. Sam Ehrlich, who is a law professor, and he also likes to write about, college sports news and law and things like that. But let's go ahead and bring this up. And here's his breaking tweet today. It says, West Virginia District Court grants temporary restraining order and preliminary injunction to WVU football players Jimmori Robinson, Jeffrey Wymer, Ty Edwards, and Justin Harrington, allowing them to play for the Mountaineers in 2025. So that's great news. Well, there was a lot of, we all heard about the bombshell that was dropped yesterday by the NCAA attorney saying, hey, it doesn't matter if you grant this. Jimmori Robinson is not academically eligible. But according to a tweet that came out today, another tweet that came out today, this one by Mr. Ross Dellinger, that may not be true. So let's go ahead and pull that one up real quick, and then I'll show you guys that one. And this is this to me, I think, Jonathan, you'll agree with me here, and I'll get your thoughts on it, but in a second. But it looks like, based on this, that he's going to be eligible. Let me go ahead and expand this real quick. It says the NCAA released a statement on a West Virginia judge's decision to extend the eligibility of 4 WVU players with a preliminary injunction, including one athlete who is academically ineligible. Maybe most notably, the NCAA says this, quote, erodes longtime academic standards. And here's the announcement from the NCAA. It says this ruling will lead to high school students losing opportunities to compete in college athletics, and it erodes the academic standards that have for decades ensured student athletes obtain an education. The NCAA and its member schools are making changes to deliver more benefits to student athletes, but the patchwork of state laws and differing court opinions are why partnering with Congress is essential to provide stability for all college athletes. So, all that being said, John, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, so Couz, the first thing I would say is there's a lot to unpack right there. And the full disclosure, neither one of us, I think, are legal experts. And so,
yes,
trying to read between the lines here is extremely difficult, right? And so we'll talk about a lot of this. I've got a couple thoughts on it, and then I've got a couple questions on it. One of my thoughts is just the obvious here is it's a huge win for West Virginia. And I don't think it could be understated just how important it is. We're not talking about just 4 average players, right? I mean, we're talking about at least 2, 3, maybe all 4 that are immediate impact players. And I guess because you touched on it last, the NCAA, their statement to me, it does a couple things. One, it's confusing in the sense of it's like my interpretation is we don't agree, but we're not going to continue to push the issue. See, my original thought was if you listen to the court hearings yesterday, Couz, the NCAA attorneys actually made several blunders. And I'll say blunders because, quite frankly, they stated some things that weren't true. And so I had kind of thought, I wonder if they just accidentally or inadvertently or just incorrectly said Robinson's not academically eligible. But then they followed it up tonight in their statement. So, Yeah, and then it seemed to me that they were throwing in the towel, if you will,
Mhm.
because essentially they said court rulings, state laws, we can't control them.
Mhm.
They're going to do whatever they want to do. So I think it's huge. And then my questions, I guess, will be, will it hold? Speaking of that,
Right.
I think it would be an extremely bad look for the NCAA to come back, especially on Jimmori Robinson. If you'll notice in the court ruling today, and this could be standard, Couz, I do not know. Um, but did you notice that he put ordered in capital bold letters?
I'm glad you went there.
Again, full disclosure, I'm no legal expert, but you're looking at it on the screen. The NCAA is also in bold letters ordered to declare him eligible.
Mhm.
So I think it'd be a bad look for the NCAA if they wanted to go that route. And then finally, I guess, is how much better is West Virginia with these four players?
Yep.
Are they one win better, or are they 2 or 3 wins better? And so that's my questions.
Yeah. Yeah. You mentioned the order thing, and we were on the same page because I was actually preparing to talk about that and had that ready to put up on the screen. But you make a great point. And then to add to that, though, one of the things I do want to mention here, because I think this is important, the NCAA has what they call the rule of restitution, which means
Yeah.
if a player gets granted eligibility by a court, for example, but then they appeal it and it gets overturned, if that player had played, then the school could be punished, right?
Right.
They do. That is a rule. Well, in this ruling, he says the NCAA, and this is the Judge John Preston Bailey. He says the NCAA is enjoined from enforcing its rule of restitution against the four players and or West Virginia University for complying with and relying on this order. It is so ordered again. So he bolded enjoined multiple
And then
times.
ordered again. Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, he's making a point here, right? And there was something made. When the NCAA came out, and the NCAA attorney came out with that phrase yesterday or statement yesterday
Yeah.
about Jimmori Robinson being academically ineligible. I think, I'm not a lawyer, but I have watched Law and Order a lot, Jonathan, and it's my understanding that when you do something like that in a courtroom, it usually doesn't sit real well with the judge. When you surprise them, that stuff that's supposed to be brought to discovery, or I think that's the proper word, beforehand, right? That's stuff you're supposed to talk to the plaintiff's attorneys about, to the judge about.
Yeah.
Don't just drop a bombshell in the middle of a case. That might have just ticked off the judge and made their case worse. And they probably know that. And again, this is all speculation on my part. They probably know that and like, you know what? There's no use to fight this. Let the guy play and let's move on. Now, for West Virginia, this is a great thing, and we'll talk about how it affects them on the field in just a minute, because that definitely is why we're so excited, as West Virginia fans. But let's look at the big picture a minute, Jonathan. Could this set a precedent, you think, for more athletes down the road to be deemed academically eligible when they're not supposed to be? And hence, at that point, why even use the word student athlete? Or do you think that's just the NCAA trying to play games?
I think maybe it's a little bit of both. I do think it's probably the NCAA trying to save some face, and probably them making a little bit of a case about it. I understand that. To the NCAA's point about its unfair punishing high school student athletes and opportunities that they may have, the only rationale that I can come up with their interpretation there is that if you're starting to grant players 6 and 7 years, it's going to take away from that high school senior that's going to start to come in and try and get that spot. And if you'll remember, going back to yesterday, 2 things. One, the NCAA attorneys argued that if you made them eligible, they were taking somebody else's roster spot. And the judge even came out and said, well, I'm going to go off on the basis that they're going to have to earn that spot. And you kind of felt right there that he was growing a little tired of that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would just go back to your original point. We kind of heard yesterday, and this is all interpretation, and you kind of hear a lot of things. But we kind of heard last night that, to your point, the judge in the case wasn't exactly thrilled with the NCAA for bringing that up.
Mhm.
And my understanding of that was that the judge essentially felt like he was being, if you do this, if the judge rules this way, we're still going to call him ineligible. So always kind of shove it in his face in the sense of, it doesn't matter what you rule, right? We're going to deem him ineligible, and so maybe that's why you saw what you saw today out of him, because that seemed to me to be extremely direct to the NCAA.
Yeah, I agree. And you don't want to show a judge up in his own courtroom, right? I mean, that's not something you want to do. So who knows? I mean, this judge has been known to rule against the NCAA before, so I'm sure he's not a huge fan of their tactics and the way they do things anyway. So, uh, that I think that's one reason fans felt good about once they saw who the judge was. They felt good about it. And then, of course, yesterday when they dropped that bombshell about the academic ineligibility, it got us all upset again, like we'd been kicked in the gut, I think was the term I used. And then here we are, happy again. It's like we've been on this roller coaster ride here in the last 24 hours or so.
Yeah.
Uh,
And I'll say too,
what's
real
up,
quick.
James? James in the house. He
Yeah.
rides for us over at the site.
Yeah. Hey, what's up, man? Yeah. And real quick, I'll just say too, with these court cases, I don't think quite what direction it's going to go, right? And so, on one hand, you're thankful that you have them back. The other hand, you think to yourself, I wish we maybe could have done this, or the players could have done this a little bit earlier. But there's a waiting process. We understand that. And so now, I guess, as we go forward, and we're going to talk about this, is how much of an impact will they make? What's the expectation?
Yep.
And I guess when will they be ready, right? So I think, again, I go back to what I said originally. These aren't just four guys that you're hoping are depth pieces. These are guys that you spent all off season and even some serious NIL thinking they will be the pieces. So
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. And I guess obviously the one concern is, hey, how long is it going to take these guys, because they haven't been able to practice. Let's keep that in
right,
mind. They did not go through fall camp with the rest of the team. They had to do work on their own because they weren't allowed to practice.
right,
So we got to keep that in mind. So they are behind the 8 ball a little bit. They do have 2 weeks to try to catch up, learn the playbook, learn whatever. And thankfully, this year, West Virginia does not have to start with Penn State or a Power 4 school. They get to start with Robert Morris.
yeah,
So it'll be interesting to me to see, do these guys even play in that game? Hey, I don't even know if they can. I don't know how many practices they have to have before they can play. But the cool thing about it is, Jonathan, we won't need them to play in that game.
right,
So you don't have to worry about going into that. I mean, I'm not trying to take Robert Morris for granted here, but they should win that game, right? Either way. Then week 2, maybe they come back to play against Ohio, shake the rust off, and then they're ready to go, hopefully, by week 3 when Pitt comes to town, right? That's what you got to hope for.
yeah. I would imagine that could be the target. You do have a couple weeks to ease in, to transition in, and I think for everybody, obviously, you're not going to want to overlook anybody, especially going on the road to Ohio. I'm not trying to portray that as you're not going to Columbus,
Right.
But you want to be really careful, especially early in the season.
Yep.
But let's be honest about it. Everybody has the third game of the season circled on the calendar.
Yep.
And today's news is huge, especially going forward in the season, but obviously beginning in that week 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and let's just go ahead and talk about what these players will mean to this team. And obviously, we've got to start with Jimmori.
Yeah.
Last year at UTSA, he played outside linebacker for Coach Jeff Traylor. Started 12 of 13 games, recorded 43 tackles, 27 unassisted tackles, 10.5 sacks, 17 TFLs, 2 forced fumbles, and 2 pass breakups.
Yeah.
So he stuffs the stat sheet, right? And that 10.5 sacks really looks good. West Virginia has not had a player do something like that since, gosh, I can't remember when, Jonathan.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's great to have a guy who can get in the backfield that many times. Now, will he be able to repeat that at a Power 4 school? Probably not, but man, if he can get you 5, 6, 7 sacks to go along with a few TFLs and be somebody that just disrupts the passing game
Yeah.
with all the quarterbacks, great quarterbacks in this Big 12 conference, that's going to be a huge, huge addition to this roster.
Yeah, make no mistake about it, Couz. Robinson was the prized possession of the offseason. He was the guy that they targeted. He was the guy that they wanted. He was the guy that they beat out SEC schools for, right?
Yep.
I mean, he was the American Athletic Conference Defensive Player of the Year. You talked about it. 43 tackles. To me, there's two things that stand out with him: 10.5 sacks and 17 tackles for loss. Robinson lived in the backfield. Obviously, there is a question about how does that translate to this level, to the Big 12, and that's valid, right? But he was the guy that everybody wanted, and so getting him, I think we both really feel that this defensive line has made some progress, and what they have done getting guys back, somebody like Eddie V, and they've got some guys coming up. Some guys like Hammond Russell that have grown in the program. So we feel pretty good about where this defensive line was. But I think what this does is take it to the next level. And so, I mean, he was the prized possession. He's the game changer. And dare I say, Bruce Irvin-esque in the sense of that just edge rusher, that speed. He's got that physicality as well. And so really excited about him. Again, I think they all have something that they're going to bring to the table, but having him is huge.
David Friedline's comment here, he says, the attorney for NCAA was asked by the judge if they notified the 4 players that they weren't eligible. It took several minutes for them to answer, and then they responded, they should have known. So
I don't think the judge was. Yeah, I don't, and that just kind of plays into what we were half assuming, half knew, is that I don't think the judge was too excited, and I don't think the NCAA attorneys were overly prepared for some of their arguments.
Yeah. Sean Mathena says he heard that the NCAA attorney was a Pitt graduate. I read that too. I didn't know if it was a joke or not, and I didn't take time to research it. But that was interesting.
Well, I know they're out of Charleston, and it's likely you won't see them at a West Virginia football game. I'm going to go out on a limb and say you're not going to see them in the blue lot at any time this season.
Yeah, agree. All right, now let's shift gears and talk about Ty Edwards a minute. And this is another important piece. Now, they did go out and get, he was going to be their big-bodied back, right? A lot of said he might even play some fullback for Coach Rod. 6'2", 225, 230 pounds, somewhere in there. 225 according to the depth chart. They did go out and get a Tyler Jacklich, another guy to kind of fill that role a few days ago out of the portal from a JUCO. But Ty Edwards has a lot more experience and comes in as a senior. I mean, he's a redshirt senior out of Palatka, Florida. Has traveled around a lot, but spent his last year at Northern Iowa. But when you look at his stats from last year, earned all MVFC, that's his conference, honorable mention, played in 12 games, rushed for 1,047 yards on 157 attempts, averaged of 6.4 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns, and caught 13 passes for 77 yards and a touchdown. So, I mean, again, you've got somebody with proven production. Yes, it was at an FCS school, but still, it's at the D1 level. And, I've seen his tape. I think he's good enough to play at the Power 4 level. He's got good speed for his size, and I'm really excited to have him on the roster.
Yeah, because he pretty much does everything. I mean, and at 6'2", 225, if you just take one look at him, you're not going to pinch fat off of him. I mean, Edwards is a specimen, right? And you said it, 1,022 yards. I'll tell you this, I think the coaches were a little concerned here about not getting him eligible. And I know they needed bodies during camp, and there were some injuries early, but you said it. I mean, it forced them essentially to go out and get 2 more running backs, right? I mean, Andre Devine comes in and Tyler Jacklich comes in. And it almost kind of felt like Jacklich was was the one that was going to replace Edwards because he's 6'2", 220, 225 as well. But what this does though is you built your entire offseason roster around Jaheim and Ty Edwards. That was the idea, right? I mean, it was almost the Jaheim CJ Donaldson 1-2-headed monster. And so I think this goes a little bit further than just immediate impact, right? I mean, it gives West Virginia time to work, say, a Dior Hubbard in. Sincere Bowers gets to work in. You're probably not throwing Jacklich right into the mix, right? You're giving Devine a little bit of time. So this gives you not just a capable, but just another body. And you're not forcing other guys into the mold. So this one, him and Robinson were the two that you really were kind of trying to hone in on. And so I would imagine the staff is extremely ecstatic about this one.
Yeah. All right, let's jump over to Justin Harrington now. This is a player I was really excited to get once we got him. I mean, he came from Washington, and yes, he didn't play at Washington last year. I'm not sure why. I think he may have been banged up, but I ain't 100% sure. Actually, it does say he played in 8 games, so I was wrong. He did play in 8 games last year, but he didn't see the kind of playing time that he probably expected. But he had been a starter at Oklahoma the year prior for Brent Venables before he got injured. He played 2 games, got injured, and had to sit out the rest of the season. Yeah. He was a starter at the nickel, what they called the cheetah position, for Brent Venables at Oklahoma.
Yeah.
2 years ago. So if you can start at Oklahoma in the SEC, I'd say you're probably a pretty good player, wouldn't you think? For Brent Venables, who's arguably one of the best defensive mind in the game.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think West Virginia feels really good about the defensive secondary. Some of the guys that they brought in, some of the guys that actually have kind of stayed in the program as well. So I think that's and it still kind of feels strange to say West Virginia feels good about the defensive secondary, but I think that's an area where West Virginia pretty good. Look, here's the thing about Harrington. I don't know that he's going to jump in all of a sudden and be a starter, but he is somebody that is capable. He's extremely physical. I mean, his size is really good. He's a big bag there, and the talent's there. The question for him is what he's battled through his entire career at Washington and in Oklahoma is, can he stay healthy? Right? I mean, that's the question. Can he stay healthy? And so when you put him in a secondary with some of the guys, Fred Perry, Derek Carter, some of these other guys in the secondary, Jordan Scruggs, he gives you another body that can play, that's talented, that's big and physical and can run, and he's not going to have to log as many snaps. So that should help keeping him healthy. But yeah, another big one. I don't know that he's going to be as dependent on as, say, a Robinson or Ty Edwards. But you can never have too many quality safeties to play, especially in the Big 12. So, yeah, excited to see where he goes and if he can stay healthy this year.
Agreed. And then the final one is Jeffrey Wymer, who actually, interesting story here, Jeffrey Wymer has not even been listed on West Virginia's roster yet.
Yeah.
Which actually the NCAA tried to use that against him yesterday. But the reason he wasn't on the roster was because they denied his waiver originally. Yeah. So they were like, well, we can't put him on the roster because NCAA denied his waiver. They didn't want to get in trouble. And I didn't even know this. Did you know he was enrolled at Fairmont State?
I did not until I saw that today.
In the fall or spring, I guess.
Yeah.
Would have been spring. Anyway, I can't remember the timing, but in between coming from Idaho State to West Virginia, he was enrolled at Fairmont State. So I thought, which is, for those of you who don't know, is like 30 minutes down the road from Morgantown. So I found that very interesting. But Jeffrey Wymer, last season at Idaho State, by the way, he's 6'2", 204, so he's a big receiver. Right?
Yeah.
He's coming from California. There's a lot of West Coast guys on this team.
Yeah, sure is.
Anyway, he caught 75 balls for 1,016 yards, 6 touchdowns last year for Idaho State in his lone season with them. He's also spent time at UNLV, spent time at City College of San Francisco, which was his JUCO, and that's the reason he's getting granted this extra years because of his junior college time. But yeah, I mean, I watched some of his highlights when he first committed back in the summer, man, and I really like his game. He doesn't have, he's not going to he's fast, but he's not like blazing fast. But man, can he go up and get the ball in the air?
Yeah.
Great body control. He's just a really good football player, really good receiver. Again, I don't expect him to come in and start necessarily, but I do think he'll contribute, and I do think he might at least make the 2 deep once he's able to get caught up. And I would assume he's probably been studying the playbook and stuff. I would think.
Yeah.
But in preparation for this, once he can get in physical shape, get his body ready to go, and get in game shape, hopefully by week 3 of the season, he'll be able to play some football for this team and help them out against Pitt.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm excited about him.
Yeah, one of my favorite transfers played for the Idaho State Bengals. So
are they better than the Cincinnati Bengals this year?
Well, they could probably score on the Cincinnati Bengals. We'll leave it at that. Yeah, here's the thing about Wymer is that he is going to give you that depth piece, right? But again, you talked about the size. I mean, for his size, 75 receptions. Because I got to be honest with you, I don't care where you're playing. 75 receptions getting it done. I mean,
yep,
that's pretty good production, right? So, somebody that they targeted, that they felt could make this transition from that level to the Big 12. I would assume that he studied that playbook. I know, right? They haven't mentioned him specifically, but they've talked about kind of doing their own thing and own working out. I'm sure this is part of it. But West Virginia is going to look for somebody that can be an outside receiver that's got some height, has some physicality with them, that can go up and catch the football.
Yep.
And again, it may not be an immediate impact in week 1, 2, or 3, but could be somebody as the season goes along. When certain things pop up in week 7 and 8 plus, where you could see. So again, these are just all 4 players that I think in one way or another can make an impact. And so curious to see how he falls in and how quickly he can pick up everything. And he is definitely one to keep an eye on and see where he falls.
Yep, agree 100%. Let's shift gears a second and talk a little bit about the fact that West Virginia went and added 6 players to the roster.
Yeah.
During fall camp, which is kind of unheard of in most cases. What were your thoughts on that? Do you think is it a sign of desperation? Is it just being prepared because of these cases? Is it building for the future? Is it a combination of everything? What do you think?
Yeah, I don't think it's as much building for the future, just because the way the landscape is now, they could be gone quickly, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think it's that. I think it's a combination of, there was some concern about some of these players. We talked about the running backs. I think there was some concern about injuries in camp, but I also think there was some concern about Edwards and whether he was going to be eligible. You look along the defensive line. It's not ironic that, maybe I should have you attempt this name. You said it to me and you're really good. Olu Omotasho.
I say Omotasho.
Okay.
I'm assuming that's how it's pronounced. I don't really know.
I don't think it's ironic that he is very similar in game to Jimmori Robinson, right? I mean, a 6'2" defensive lineman from Oregon State, did battle some injuries, but played in 9 games, 14 tackles, a sack. Now, listen, his numbers weren't quite on the level of Jimmori Robinson, but he was injured. And in 22, 46 tackles, 6.5 sacks, 7.5 tackles for loss, and I think it was like 10 QB hurries.
Not too shabby.
Not too shabby. And again, it's not ironic that he fits the mold of Jimmori Robinson. Now, not to get him ahead of myself, but now you get to play them both, right? And so, what a luxury that is. And then the other one I think I would touch on is Jude Edwards, the preseason JUCO All-American offensive lineman, Trinity Community College. 6'3", 300 pounds. He's going to be able to play kind of interior position, center position maybe. The funny part about this one is, you quietly have heard some positive stories coming out of camp about the offensive line.
Mm-hmm.
And so this one almost tends to think it's more depth piece. And I do think it's depending on what position you're speaking of. determines whether it's a depth issue or whether it's a, hey, we were concerned issue. And so, because I actually think it was a little bit of both, depending on what position. And hey, and I'll finally just say that, you know, Rich Rodriguez has talked about quickly, he noticed they needed bodies, right? I mean, they needed some people to come in. And in year one, when everybody's learning, you might as well snatch them now. So I think it's dependent on the position and what the exact need and reasoning was.
Yeah, it's fair. And I do think, I don't know. I know Rich Rod doesn't build for the future. I know he wants guys that can play now. But I do like the fact that a lot of these guys are underclassmen. You know, you mentioned Edwards; he's an
Right.
underclassman.
Yeah.
Jacklich is an underclassman, I think. I know he has at least 2 years of eligibility. You know, the Nuhi Yandal, the linebacker, has a couple years of eligibility. So, Andre Devine has 4 years. The cornerback from Division II has 4 years. So
Yeah.
all of these, and by the way, I don't even think they've officially added him yet. So I'm not even sure what's going on there. But and we're talking about Hubert Hendrickson,
Yeah.
this third. But anyway, long story short, I do like the fact that a lot of them are underclassmen because you would like to think that some of them will stay around, right?
Yeah.
And West Virginia's going to be losing a ton of seniors off this team. So if these guys can come in, buy into the culture, and end up being pretty good football players, then they may stick around a couple years. And if they're not, don't buy in and aren't or end up not panning out, guess what? There's a thing called the transfer portal. Rich Rod can say, "Hey guys, look, you're not working out. Probably best if you go in the portal, get to go somewhere where you can play." Because they can do that. Coaches are allowed to do that if they choose.
Yeah.
These guys are getting paid now, and coaches have to be. I mean, you've got to make sure you're not paying the wrong guys. So I think it's. I don't want to go as far as to say desperation. I'll call it filling positions of need, where you might need an extra depth piece or two.
Right.
And then in case of Omotosho, I think he might actually get to play quite a bit, and then maybe less so now that Robinson's back. But we'll see. But yeah, I don't know that it's desperation. Is it cause for concern? I think it's fair to be concerned in some of those positions, but I'm not that worried about it, to be honest. I think they're going to be fine. I think a lot of it too is just, I think Rich Rod just wants guys that can play.
Right. Yeah, and it's
Period.
almost a don't leave any stone unturned.
Yeah,
theory.
that's a great way to put it.
And yep. I mean, you listen. We talked about months ago, whenever the transfer portal, you started just getting a wave of guys that come in, and you and I have talked several times about. I thought that West Virginia did a real. Now, the results are to be determined, but we thought West Virginia did a really good job of mixing and matching guys that had 1 year and guys that had multiple years, and so. It doesn't hurt to get these guys in here, even though the landscape of college athletics is you're recruiting every single year. But if you can get them in and you can get the culture and you can find out a little bit about them and you can build some relationships, and you might find that diamond in the rough. So it doesn't hurt to do that. I'm excited to see the development of some of these guys that now they're not rushed into action. Right. You look at some of these guys, whether it be an Andre Devine that now all of a sudden you're not looking up and thinking, is he going to get meaningful snaps against, whoever it would be. Right. And, then you look at now you're pairing Robinson and the transfer from Oregon State, you're pairing them together. And so does that look, or does one offer a little bit of a rest to the other to keep healthy? And so it's changed a little bit, but I think it's pretty good on how they've mixed and matched. And I think it's just to don't leave any stone unturned.
Yep, agreed. We're going to shift gears and talk quarterbacks here in just a second. But before we do, I've got to give a shout out to our channel sponsor here and also the folks who designed our new website over at WV Sports Chat. Speaking of which, please go check it out, wvsportschat.com. It's where Jonathan, myself, and some other writers are putting up content on a daily basis around West Virginia Mountaineer sports. That's basketball, football, baseball, you name it. I even saw somebody put up a soccer article the other day, Jonathan.
Yeah.
So yeah, we try to cover it all the best we can, but nonetheless, go to WV Sports Chat. The site was designed by the folks at Appalachia Digital. Go check them out, appalachiadigital.com/Couz. Let them know I sent you. They can design your website. If you already have a site and you want to level it up, they can do that. They can help you get found easier on Google. They can do all of that. So go to AppalachiaDigital.com/Couz, and I want to thank them for helping support what we're doing here and what we're doing over on site. So that being said, we had somebody asked about Khalil Wilkins in the comments. So let's just go ahead and talk quarterbacks real quick.
Yeah.
First of all, and we'll touch on Khalil Wilkins, but do you think the job is going to be Nico's at the end of the day, or what are your thoughts there?
I've kind of always thought that maybe that was just the way it would pan itself. I don't know if it was necessarily his job to lose, but I felt like he was going to have every opportunity to be the guy. Right now, I will say credit to Jalen Henderson. Everything that we have heard through camp is that he looks really good. Mm-hmm. Not just on the field, but he looks really good physically. That he shed some weight, that he had added some muscle, and that he looked really good. Word around camp is that the coaches were really excited to see his offseason progression. Having said that, it's kind of one of those things where I want to be careful when I say this because I don't mean this in a negative way, but Rich Rodriguez didn't owe Nico anything, right? I mean, and I don't want that to be interpreted incorrectly or in a demeaning way. But
I think it's fair.
I think you can be thankful, and I think
Nico would agree with you, by the way.
Yeah, and I think you can be appreciative that Nico stayed. Mm-hmm. But nobody owes him anything, and you're absolutely right, Couz. I think to Nico's credit, if he were on this show with us right now, he would say, "You're darn right. I agree with you. Nobody owes me nothing. I want to earn it." That's the reason why I think so many people love Nico.
I think it's his DNA. He's hard edge.
He 1,000%. 1,000%. In fact, if you looked it up in the dictionary, it's probably a picture of him. I believe that. Now, having said that, this is a results-based business. And, we saw where Rodriguez came out the other day and said he's not even sure if this will be resolved through camp, that this could something that lingers into the season. I think you're going to see I don't know that you see 4, but I think you see 3 quarterbacks play against Robert Morris. I think Max Brown gets a little bit of time in there as well. And then I think as you go into the second game, that could likely get trimmed down to what we think would be Nico and Henderson. And then I think by week 3, you probably have, hopefully, the guy. We could have a bigger issue if we don't have the guy by week 3. But yeah, I mean, if I'm thinking to myself right now, I think it's, even though you could see 3, I think it's probably a 2-man race. And I think by the time we get to Pitt, it's a 1-man race, barring everything goes as we hope or expect. But then, heck, Rodriguez has said several times, Couz, I don't know how you feel about this. He's okay with having 2 guys. If he's got to play 2 or 3 guys all season, he'll do it. And so is it the worst thing in the world if it's if they're both playing well and there's no separation? I don't know.
And especially, and I don't know, this is probably not a big deal, but a minor deal. The fact that they're both left-handed doesn't hurt either, because you don't have to adjust your play calling to one side or the other. Your receivers don't have to worry about the ball spinning in a different direction, which they are catching passes from right-handed quarterbacks in camp too, so they should get adjusted to that. Yeah. And they actually prepared them for that in the offseason. I heard them talking about they actually turned the jugs machine around, and I think it was a jugs machine, whatever they were using, to have it spin in the opposite direction so that the receivers would get accustomed to catching balls from a left-handed quarterback, because the ball spins backwards.
Right.
It looks like it's spinning backwards.
Yeah.
And as a receiver, as someone who's played receiver, not at a high level, but who's played receiver, that if the ball looks funny coming at you, it can mess with your head a little bit. So I can understand why that would be an issue.
Yeah. Now, I don't think it's going to be this year, but if you really want to know who the talk of camp is Scotty Fox.
Yep.
He has been, by everything we have heard, unbelievably impressive. Mm-hmm. And they are really excited about his future. Again, it's probably not going to be this year, but he's somebody that you just keep hearing that name popping up more and more and more and more. So, I don't know how you feel about it. If you think Nico's probably the guy that if you just had to pencil in a starter right now, if you just thought this is the guy or this is his to lose, I would probably label Nico just an edge there.
Same.
But I think, let me. I guess I'll say this: I don't have him so high up and so penciled in ink that I can't. It's Jalen could do something against Robert Morris where I could say, oh, okay, well, maybe not. I don't think Nico's that far ahead.
Yeah, I agree. And I think, like you mentioned, if he comes out, the cool thing about it, the situation, Jonathan, is if he, let's just theoretically say it is Nico, right? If he doesn't play well, he's probably not going to have probably not going to have an awfully long leash, because that the guy right behind him, is probably just as capable of winning games as he is. And that could go for Jalen it too. I mean, I think it go. And I'll be honest with you, I'm probably a little higher on Max Brown than a lot of people. I think Max Brown might have more arm talent than either one of them. I think what might separate him a little bit is he's been turnover prone a little bit, and not quite as much experience at the Power 4 level. But outside of that, I think the guy can play. I really do. And he was kind of stuck in a bad offense at Charlotte too, which didn't help him.
Yeah.
But I think either one of those guys can be good. And we've heard Coach Rod talk about it. Now, there was a question in the chat specifically about Khalil Wilkins. From everything I've heard, Khalil Wilkins has looked pretty good too. But he's a little behind because he wasn't with the team. He was injured in the spring, so he didn't get to practice in the spring, which put him a little behind everybody else. But outside of that, from everything I've heard, he's looked pretty darn good. What about you? Have you heard anything different?
Yeah, Rich Rod loves him, an athletic lefty quarterback.
Yeah.
He's had some success.
You got that
with that. Yeah, I mean, Wilkins is a guy that they're excited about for the future. Again, he's a little bit behind, but they kind of kept him around, right? And so I think they see something there. And I think they see something as you go down the line. Again, you can just start naming some guys that they see at the position: Brown and Fox and Wilkins. And so, it will be interesting. I mean, I don't think you're going to be able to keep 5 and 6 guys happy, right? Especially if you think there's something there, but how long is somebody willing to wait around for that opportunity? It remains to be seen. But yeah, Wilkins is somebody that they're excited about. If he's still running a program, probably a year or two away.
Yeah, but I just don't see him staying that long. Honestly, if Scotty Fox has been playing as good as people, he might. Now I don't know. Maybe Khalil's been playing just as good, but I haven't heard that. But if Scotty Fox has looked as good as some people have said, he might surpass Khalil on the depth chart, especially considering he's Khalil was here last year, but Khalil played in a different system last year, so I don't know if it really counts.
Yeah.
But even though Scotty's a year younger than him, he may be further along than Khalil because he had that spring to practice under Rich Rod's offense. So, Scotty might be number 4. Heck, he could even be number 3 on the depth chart for all we know. But if he's playing as good as advertised, because from everything we've heard, man, he's killed it, and he's ahead of the curve from a mental standpoint as far as learning the playbook. He's just he's the future's bright if they can keep that young man in Morgantown.
Yeah, I would just say it's a good problem to have if you've got 5 guys in the quarterback room that you feel good about their future and you're struggling to get playing time. Yeah. That's a good problem to have, and you might as well just brace yourself that you're probably going to lose somebody.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, you are. But anyway, let's go ahead and we do want to talk a little bit of hoops tonight before we call it a night. Jonathan, I want to get your thoughts on this because I had some interesting thoughts on it that I talked about on a show earlier in the week, or last week rather. The men's non-conference basketball schedule came out, and I'm going to put it up on the screen. It's the scheduling matrix came out for the men's basketball team, and I want to get your thoughts on it. Just initially, what were your thoughts when you saw it? Anything?
Yeah, there's some winnable games here. One thing I like about this is we always kind of do this off the cuff and just kind of we're
Right.
just rolling it, right?
Yep.
And so, looking at this schedule because we've looked at it, but it's been a couple days. Curious to see what these teams look like, but just going out on a limb and saying West Virginia should have the upper hand here. You're getting them out, say Mary's, Campbell, Lee. I pitch you never know, right? Clemson, and then either Georgia and Xavier. That's a good test. Excited that West Virginia fans are going to see the Mountaineers in Charleston against Wake Forest. That's another good opportunity there. I think it's a good mix, Couz, right? I mean, if you look at, I see 8 to 9 games that you probably feel really good about, 8 games that you feel really good about. And then I see 3 or 4 that could potentially be some really good statement out of conference resume wins.
Yeah.
If you get an opportunity to beat a Clemson, Georgia Xavier, a Wake Forest, and Ohio State, again, we're on the just kind of favorable. I mean, is that a good word to use?
I think so. I think it's favorable from a win-loss standpoint. But here's a couple things that stand out to me. The first thing that stood out to me was that is an easy schedule.
Yeah.
And it may actually be too easy. I'm a little bit concerned that what happened last year, if this team doesn't go out and win 21, 22 basketball games, they could get left out of the tournament potentially. Depending on how they do in the Big 12, but I'm really concerned about that non-conference schedule. When you look at I looked at the RPIs from the teams. They have 4 teams on their schedule that finished last year with an RPI of 299 or higher.
But did you want it to be? But where did you want it though? Like, does it fit this team? Right? I mean, does it?
Yeah,
does
sure.
it? I mean, first off, I would say I wouldn't disagree with you, but I guess my question would be: is where do you put your stock?
Yeah.
Because let's face it, this is year 2 of a complete rebuild. And so while we feel decent about this basketball team in terms of some of the additions, I don't want our excitement to cover up our nervousness about this is year 2 of a complete rebuild with a whole new staff and coaches. And so it's kind of, for me, about what I expected.
Kind of year 3 if you count the interim year with the Allard.
Yeah, great point. So, yeah, I mean, I think there's a lot of feel goods here.
Yeah.
I think it's kind of designed to be tested, but not overly tested in the sense of you don't have an Alabama, you don't have a Duke, you don't have but there are some wins you can kind of feel pretty good about, and then some wins that you should have that you can say, yeah, we got ourselves 12 wins before conference season.
Yeah.
So about what I expected.
All right. Here's another thing that stood out to me. No true road games. Wake Forest's neutral site, Ohio State's neutral site, Georgia Xavier, Clemson, all neutral site. The other thing that stood out to me, and I actually didn't notice this, I actually think it was Skylar Callahan's show I was watching. There's also, outside of Pitt, the Backyard Brawl's coming to Morgan. Outside of that game, there are no, and even when you look at the Big 12 schedule with it, there's not a ton of exciting games in Morgantown this year. It's kind of a down year as far as having a lot of big time opponents coming to Morgantown.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to be dependent on buying stock on Ross Hodge.
Yep.
Because the truth is, you're always going to have 1 or 2 of these, but you've essentially got 9 games against some teams that they're not moving the needle. I mean, respectfully, Mercyhurst isn't moving the needle.
Right.
Mississippi Valley State, not moving the needle. I mean, how many people are going to hop in the vehicle and say, hey, I tell you what, let's drive an hour and a half and watch them play Campbell. So I think you're buying stock on the excitement around Ross Hodge. And if I'm being completely honest about it, I think after last year's final month, after the Selection Sunday debacle and after DeVries just essentially disappeared into the night, I think fans are going to buy in big time because Ross Hodge has done a really good job of kind of wrapping his arms around the state and the culture. And we saw that with the Best Virginia run in Charleston. He's doing all the right things. He went to baseball games. He's been active. So I think they're banking on two things. One of them being some wins to feel pretty good about yourself going into conference play because of you could argue, as you did, year 3 of a complete rebuild. But then I also think that they are. I think they're hoping folks are buying stock into Ross Hodge, and they just come out to see a product that they can feel good about themselves.
Yeah. Comment here on the YouTube. It says, we have a great team, but do we have that Smalls leader yet? And we don't know, Trick. That's the thing. But we didn't know Javon Small was going to be what he was going into last year either. We knew he was a good player because we saw him at Oklahoma State, but we had no idea he was going to be average 19 a game, right? Had no idea that was going to happen. But, again, like Jonathan's saying, it's all banking on, you've kind of convinced me, Jonathan, on the schedule. Maybe it was maybe they didn't want to do to him what they did to Neil Brown, right? And just hammer him with all these, games that are brutal, right out of the gate. But I don't know. We'll see. Either way, it's exciting. But right now, I think everybody's kind of in football mode. But it is going to be exciting to see what the basketball team does as well come here and starting in November. We got Outlaw of College Football in the house. Thank you, brother, for joining. He says WVU is officially being investigated by the NCAA. News just broke on the Locked On Network starring Drake Toll. Locked On Ball Sacks Network starring Drake Toll. Oh, leave it up to him to come up with something funny. Oh, I love you, brother. Needless to say, he's not a huge fan of that network, okay? Let's just leave it at that. Oh, Lord have mercy. Help us all. I even like the little emoji you got there. Is that a fish?
I mean, it looks like a catfish.
That's what it is. It's got to be.
Listen, I feel like I've spent enough time in some farm ponds in this southern West Virginia style that we live in, where it looks like a pretty good sized catfish to me. Yeah. Can't confirm it. But however, I guess the last thing I'll say on this, actually, I'm glad to see that I'm bringing you around to the good side. I feel good about this basketball team. To the answer to the point about do we have Javon Small leader? Here's the funny thing about that, because that's actually a really good question. I don't know that you're right that we didn't know Javon Small last year, but I think we've got somebody like Honor Huff, Trace and Eaglestaff they're dudes, man, right? Like they're going to command the ball and can score. But then I'll tell you where I think your leader could be. I think it could be somebody that he's not going to maybe be the leader as Javon Small was and been the guy. Mm-hmm. But what about a guy like Jasper Floyd, who comes over with Ross Hodge from North Texas?
Great point.
And he's a floor leader. Now, he may not be that go out and get 18 or 20 or whatever, and like when everything else goes south, he's the guy that goes and gets it. But I'd actually keep an eye on Jasper Floyd. I think he's a guy that's going to know the system. Ross Hodge is going to count on him to be a floor leader and get everybody. Brennan Lorient also comes over from North Texas, so there is some familiarity there with what he's wanting to do. So I think you've got a couple options. I don't know that they're going to come in the sense of he's the guy that you're just going to have to bank to get a shot. I think, but it could come from a couple different ways.
Yep, agreed. What's up, Big E7375? Thanks for joining the show, brother. All right. Real quick, just remind you guys, hit the like button, please. Whether you're watching on Facebook, X, YouTube, wherever, hit that like button. It helps the algorithm. Check us out at wvsportschat.com. We've got articles out over there. Don't forget to listen to us on podcast platform over at Couz's Corner as well. This show's will air on podcast and on YouTube here. Subscribe to the channel. I'm inching closer to 9,600 subs. I would love to be at 10,000 by the end of the calendar year. It's a lofty goal, but I think it's doable, especially now that football season's coming. So do that, and Follow Jonathan over on X at Jonathan K. Martin. It's Jonathan with no H in the front. Follow us on WV Sports Chat on X, and it's just like it says on the screen at WV Sports Chat. It's pretty simple. You can find me at Couz206. This has been the 40th episode of the Gold and Blue Breakdown Show, celebrating the eligibility of 4 West Virginia football players and them winning in the courtroom today. And we are now even more excited for kickoff on August 30th and the return of Rich Rodriguez to Morgantown. Let's spot the ball. Go Mountaineers, Q Country Roads. We're out.